setting the record straight.
Go ahead.
Okay, setting the record straight. Where you start talking about a situation of, was it twining into the vine? Now, if you have 1/4 of each part, I'm quite sure they don't have 1/4. As far as, but they still got it under law, whereas they can get the things and grant the things that they want.
Right, but that's only because prior to the civil rights movement and affirmative action, etc., you didn't have any rights at all. Right? What happened is in the 17th century, right here in Georgia, where we dwelled, the Yamasee, Native Americans, the Europeans came in and made a deal with us for equipment, heavy equipment, because we couldn't sell our goods because heavy equipment was starting to come in, more sophisticated farming. So they made a deal with us and told us that they would give us a certain amount of heavy equipment, like they usually do, and we pay them back in 6 months. You follow? However, and you can read this, you can read up on this. However, after we did it, they didn't hold true to that treaty because it was an oral, not a written agreement. They came back within 3 weeks, and then when we couldn't afford to pay them, what they did is they took the women and the girl children from us. All right? It didn't stop there, because that's not how the Yamasees dealt, right? And they started having children by them. Correct? What happened within a year's time, the Yamasee were trying to hold true to their word, and when they found out that these Caucasians, these British Caucasians, were having sex with their daughters, there was what they call a Yamasee massacre here in Georgia, right? Like the Zulu did, and they rose up and they started massacring Europeans and pushed them off the land. But what they had to take back into consideration is that a lot of their women had been raped by these Caucasians, and that the children being born to them were mulattoes. You follow that? These mulattoes grew up, wanted to leave our campsites, or what they call presently reservations. They want to leave the land and go and look and seek out lighter people. So when these mulatto children sought out Caucasians to marry, they produced these Caucasian-looking people who by right can say they're Yamasee. You follow? You understand what happened? And then what happened is the tribes got, a war broke out. We blended in with the Seminole, the Creek, the Oshito, the Wichita, and different tribes as Yamasees. We ended up inside because then all the Europeans came together against us because we whipped a couple of ass. So they got all the different tribes together, all the different cults of the Irish, the Polish, the French, everybody got together and came down on us right here in Georgia, right here in Milledgeville. You follow? And mashed us. So the men we had migrated in different directions. Those that went to Georgia, we became known as the Seminole. The ones who are going, so others of us went as far as Chile, became as far as Yucatan. We scattered in different directions, and we became mixed in with the Cherokee, so you find a lot of your Yamasees saying, I'm a Cherokee. And you say, how do you know? Because my grandmother is a Cherokee. And it goes back further than your grandmother. What about your great-great-grandmother? What tribe was she? Because the Cherokees was not always there. So they were called an Indiga, which meant we the people. And all the tribes started naming themselves, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we the people, because that was the first line of the Iroquois Constitution. So when the Constitution was set up here, as a remembrance of who they are, most of the Native Americans in their own dialect named the tribe we the people as a group, because we all had to unite to survive. And so we broke off and became different tribes. So yes, you have Caucasians that can stand up and say, I am Yamasee. As long as you don't stand up and say, right, he's Yamasee, he's my son. You follow that? And you couldn't do that until certain bills where guys like Dr. Martin Luther King, who didn't appear to have any value, had a great amount of value insofar as he got certain rights implemented that gave us the right to stand up in a courtroom. Whereas, let's say, the Nation of Islam ain't giving us no rights. All we doing is, as the Nation of Islam, we doing is talking about what we're going to do to the white man. Dr. Martin Luther King, you know what I'm saying, went out and got certain things passed that gave us the right to get into the courts, to get into the, into the universities, so we can get the kind of degrees, so we can do the kind of investigation that is necessary for us to make claims. And it's not about reclamation of land. The law literally says, don't say reclamation of land. I mean, you just got to be on the land. I don't have to reclaim my land. I have to be on the land. and then tell them from the land, this is mine. You know what I'm trying to say? They made that rule. Here that you had a situation in America where you had the Africans were brought over. Remember, you got several different slave trades. And they try to keep, say, for instance, let's say each group starts basing their philosophy or doctrine around one particular slave trade. Like the Nation of Islam keeps talking about John Hawkins in the 15th. Right? Then you'll find that the Moorish Science Temple talks about the 17th century, and they're talking about Sultan City, and that slave exchange. We as Ansars, we talked about the slave trade that came out of Sudan, where the people of Zimbabwe, certain Muslims, sold us over into slavery. That's our Ansars, and everyone, and all these were events. He wasn't in Mother Africa taking one group. He was going around taking different people and making a melting pot. But what they don't mention is that there were already people here, there was black people already in America, which are the parents of all those people from different parts of Africa, because they moved over here from Uganda thousands of years before we even broke up into different tribes in Africa and became what the Arabs call Africans or Ifriqians, those divided into faraka, into pieces. You follow what I'm saying? So now, what happened is when they got here, at the time we moved way down, let's move down 1,000 years and move to the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th century, you had in the shores of America Moors who were not Muslims. Had nothing to do with being Muslim. But you had Ansars who were Muslims, who came over here, who were brought over here out of Sudan. All right? So when you get a picture of it, thank you. You get a picture of, let's say, this is America now, and this is Africa. People were brought over here, all over this place here. And when the Caucasians started making rules and regulations, he was concerned with the African slave trade. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came from Morocco, right? He didn't care nothing about the Moors that came from Mauritania. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came from Senegal. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came. All he was concerned with is niggas from Niger, which he called the Ivory Coast. He called them niggers, nigger, negrito. And they flipped the coin in the Latin-speaking world and gave negrito the respect when morenos used to have the respect. And then they call them negrito morenos, which is black Moors. Now they really got the people confused. It was done. So a person in Spanish will walk up to you and call you negrito and make like they're giving you a compliment. They don't know that the Caucasians switched it. Portuguese turned it around. And morenos was the compliment, because it meant more black by identity, not black by color. You follow what I'm trying to say? All right. So now, to get to your point. So you did have Americans. You follow? So therefore, they sent out ships to protect America. These are Moors. I got this in the Constitution book, the whole dialogue, the whole history is written out for you. Tells you the place, the time, and everything. Sent them here. So they made a treaty with them first. This is why the White House, the capital, so-called capital, is called the White House. Because the word White House comes from the word Dar Beida. Dar Beida means the White House in Morocco, and that's the capital of the largest city there. Rabat has recently become the capital of Morocco. The original capital of Morocco was Dar Beida, which in Spanish we say Casablanca, which means the same thing, a white castle or a large white house. So the fact that the United States has a White House as a central point and has a dome on it like a mosque tells you that it was influenced by people who came from Morocco called Moors, Dar Beida. You follow what I'm trying to say? And they sent Abraham Lincoln inside it, but he's sitting in the seat of Ramesses. He's not sitting, he's sitting like a pharaoh, Ramesses. If you ever see the statue of Ramesses, when you walk by and think about what you see in Washington, Abraham Lincoln is doing the same thing. So every Grand Master is because of Ramesses. Okay. So there were Negroes here that were called slaves, even though we know the word slave is Slavic and can't apply to us. They did allow themselves to be called slaves and be treated like property. You follow that? You also had the Moors. Now, what was important about this thing is when I say the Moors came to America, the first thing that comes to your mind is Moroccans with light skin and wavy hair. But the treaty said, do not send any mulatto. No mulattoes was allowed. And mulatto was not, like I said many times, was not even an English word. It was from molad. Those born out of our seed. So they did not allow, they only allowed dark-skinned, woolly-haired Moors to come to America. Because they did not want to mix them in with their mulattoes that was already here because of the, what do you call it, the French and the Portuguese raping us. You know, hunky. You know what hunky means, right? Huh? You know where it came from? When they would go outside our towns on the other side of the road and honk their horn so the black women would come out. That's why we refer to them as hunkies. They would honk, because horns years ago didn't go beat, they just go honk, honk. If you're old enough, you know that. And so the only way they could get the black women, the Caucasian, get black women to come out at night to make money for their families before they brought them in their house and made like they were washing the floors and taking care of the kids so they can have sex with them. They used to pull up outside our neighborhood, honk, 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 and black women would know to go out there to the woods and they'd meet white or police officers and whatever, and they'd get a couple of dollars for some sex. They'd also implant seeds at times. It's a sad story, but it just happens to be true. That's where the name came from. But okay, if I got lost. So they only allowed a certain Moor here. They were afraid that the Moors that came in were going to get mixed up with the Africans that was here and the mulattoes. So they said, make sure you only bring in dark-skinned, woolly-haired Moors from Morocco. Now, part of the plot was to later capture them. They didn't tell us that, though. So now when we came in as Moors, they gave us documents and paperwork and treaties made with George Washington with his signature on it. It was in that book I gave you. If I was telling you that they are to be treated like equal citizens to every Caucasian in this country. Now, these were black men and black women with these kind of feathers on, walking around during the same time they were having slave blocks and selling people. There were black people there buying slaves who were Moors. That's real. That was us. That was our culture. We forgot it because we think Africa is our only home. But we were already here. And then we had some that came over here. Again, we were not Muslims. We didn't care. They associate the word Moor with the word Muslim. Muslim is a curse to a real Moor. Because we knew that the Berbers invaded us with their Arabicized ways and poisoned us into believing in their image and therefore pushed more out of existence, and all the cultural contributions we did got lost. You follow? But to go back. Once they got over here, remember you had your slaves, and then you had your Moors, and then you had your indigenous people who were already here. The indigenous people were mixed in with Hushen, right? And they produced what you call Native Americans. When you hear about a Native American and you see a person with a round face and two long straight braids, that's not the Native American, that's an Indian. You understand? That's an American Indian. But that's not a Native American. Native American were all maxed like that face, that statue we made out there, when you come in with that big round head and them big lips and that big nose. I wouldn't even be classified in Olmec. They're purer than me. You mean, to be honest, but that's who they were. They were the indigenous people of this land. The Chinese came in, mixed in with them, and produced what you're calling Native Americans today, or Indians. And the Caucasian gave them all of our rights. Right. Now they're walking around saying Cherokee, Choctaw, Shinnecock, Cheyenne, and we're walking around saying African, African, African. So what he did to appease the African, he created what's called the Emancipation Proclamation. Sounds big. Well, the whole thing is he put forth a proclamation that he's going to emancipate us and free us from slavery. But he did not promise us anything. Now, there was a promissory note saying 40 acres and a mule. But we multiplied so fast that they was afraid that if they offered every person who stepped forward for that 40 acres and a mule, there wouldn't be enough acreage left on this planet. we would take over. So they had to drop that and the mule and just start slapping us upside the head whenever we started asking for our rights, or creating organizations that would stifle our growth. You follow that? The first thing to do was to create religion. Get us caught up in religions that don't pertain to our own past. Such as, regardless of what I, or Farrakhan, or the 5%, or the Moorish Science Temple, or anybody else says, when you see this word, which I'm quite sure you're having a hard time figuring out, the number L, Arab. I could write it with a long letter, but I'm doing the shortcut, okay? Arab. Drop this and go Arab. You hear that word, Arab? What do you think of when you hear Arab? Tell the truth. Do you think of Farrakhan? Do you think of Noble Ali? Do you think of the Ansars? No. You think of Saudi Arabian Arabs. Light-skinned guys walking around with white on, with pot bellies and stuff, with cocky-ass attitudes, all tycoon. That is Arab. When you trace that back to, they'll say, Muhammad was an Arabian prophet. No Muslim will deny that Muhammad was an Arabian prophet, right? So there's a subtle confession that Muhammad was an Arab, but they don't say that, but they'll have age if they want. That is the birth of Muhammad, the death of Muhammad. The hadith of the Muslim world describes Muhammad as a pale Arab. So any Muslim in America, any one of us who's black-skinned, who stands up and says, I am a Muslim, is making a fool out of ourselves.